Welcome to the video for 12.5, circles in the coordinate plane. We're going to talk about how circles are graphed. To do that, we need the equation of a circle, and we're going to talk about, from a graph of a circle, how to find the center and how to find the radius. With the information in the equation of a circle, you can graph the circle. You can also write the equation of the circle if you just know the center and the radius. So that's what we got to focus on finding if we want to graph a circle. So an equation of a circle with center hk and radius r is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So that's with the center hk and the radius r. So h is going to talk about how far left or right from center you are. K is going to talk about how far up or down from center you are. And what this is helping us find is the set of points that are equidistant from the center, hk. So here's why it works. You can use the distance formula to find an equation of a circle with center hk and radius r. So we can let x, y be any point on the circle, okay? And then the radius r is just the distance from hk to x, y. So what we could do then is if we use the distance formula here and just replace it with an r, and instead of x and y put in h and k, we see this equation of a circle starting to form here. Once you square both sides, you end up with that equation of the circle. So this is all to show you that the equation of the circle comes directly from the distance formula, because all it's giving you is all the points that are that exact distance from the center, hk. All right, so we call that the standard form of an equation of the circle, or the standard equation of the circle. All right, so we might need to do some writing of the equations. Given the center and radius, write the equation in its standard form. So with this entire chunk of problems here, we're going to do x minus h squared and y minus k squared equal to r squared. All right, so notice about the equation with the x minus h and the y minus k, those are supposed to be minus signs. They're only plus signs if something specific happens. So we'll get to that here in just a second. All right, but what we can do is start to label things h, k, and r, and we can go from there. And we can plug in x minus h is 0 squared plus y minus k, which is 0 squared, equals 7 squared. All right? X minus 0, we're not really writing much. We could just simplify that down to just saying x squared. And we can simplify this one down to just saying y squared. And then write 49 instead of 7 squared. That's the equation of that circle with that center and that radius. All right, for the second one, we have h and k, we have r of 6. So again, we're supposed to have minus signs. So x minus h is 3 squared, so it's actually going to stay a minus sign that time, plus y minus 5 squared equals 6 squared. So here there's nothing to solve. We're not trying to FOIL or distribute anything. We're not trying to find the value. So we're going to leave the left-hand side essentially the same. But we're going to, instead of 6 squared, write 36. And you could feel free to just skip right to that second step if you wanted. The third one here is what I wanted to focus on with. Sometimes you do get plus signs in the equation. It's not always x minus h and y minus k. So if you notice the center here, h is 5 and k is negative 2. That's what's going to make a difference here. So similar to when we talked about point-slope form way back first semester. We have x minus 5 squared, since h is 5, plus y minus k. But when you plug in k, k is negative 2 squared. That's equal to 3 squared. Okay? So when you get something negative for h or for k, what ends up happening is you end up subtracting by a negative, which is the same as adding. So we change the y minus negative 2 into a y plus 2. So if you get a negative h or a negative k, that's going to be a plus sign in the final formula. Okay? The video's gonna take a little break here. Why don't you pause it and then try those bottom 3, and then once you hit resume, those should pop right up for you. So go ahead and pause now. Alright, so I have popped up here what you can get so far. I realize there's a problem with E and F is that they didn't tell you the radius. But for D, you can check your answer, make sure that your plus sign and your minus signs are in the correct spot. E and F, they didn't give us a radius, so let's imagine that we got a 3 for that radius. Then we would have put 3 squared or 9 in for this one. Maybe the radius for this one was 10, so we would have put a 10 squared or 100 in for this one. Okay, so that might be how you write the equation if you know the center or if you know the radius. Let's move on. Sometimes they don't give you the radius, but they give you instead the point passing through the circle. So you know that the circle is going to go through the point 2, 2. They did give us H and K here. So we can do the left-hand side, x minus 1 squared plus y minus -3. So I'm going to write that as a positive squared. The problem is we don't know r squared. And if they tell you what point it goes through, what they're going to give you is a chance to find the radius. You can't just count on the picture for something like this. The only point that you know it goes through for sure is the point 2, 2. So there would be 2 ways to deal with this then. Okay, the one way that we know is we could use the distance formula to find r. We need to find how far those points are away from each other. So that's r. So we could use the distance formula to find r. Alright, remember what that was. That was subtracting x2 minus x1 squared, y2 minus y1 squared. Okay, so we could do it that way. So we could choose x1 and y1, x2 and y2, and we can get what r is and then realize that that is r, and we need to change it into r squared eventually. Okay, so we can do it this way. That's the square root of, if you subtract the x's, that's 2 minus 1 squared. If you subtract the y's, that's 2 minus -3 squared. Okay? So that means we have the square root of 1 squared plus 5 squared, or the square root of 26. Okay? So r is the square root of 26. I'm not going to worry about the decimal of which that is, 5.0 something. Instead, I'm going to realize what's going to happen is whatever that radius is, I have to square it. So if I put a square root of 26 in there, what's going to happen is that's just going to square right back out. So what we could do is rewrite this one last time. X minus 1 squared, y plus 3 squared equals the square root of 26 squared, which is just 26. Okay. There's another way to do that, and it involves basically the same steps. Since the circle equation is directly from the distance formula, if you notice, what we did is we ended up with 1 squared and 5 squared. We could have just plugged this point into this equation. We could have done 2 minus 1 squared plus y plus 3, 2 plus 3 squared equals r squared. And what we would have gotten was 1 squared plus 5 squared, which would have been 26. And we would have already had r squared. So let me show you it that way. We want to try to get the center, or I'm sorry, the radius. If we know the center is going to be 0, 0, we could start the equation by x squared plus y squared equals r squared, but we don't know r yet. Okay. One thing you can do instead is just plug this point in. Okay. So this is our x and this is our y. So we could write this as 3 squared plus 4 squared to get r squared, which is 9 plus 16. All right, or 25 equals r squared. All right, which means that r is 5, but what we needed was r squared. If 25 is r squared, we could plug that right back in up here. So x squared plus y squared equals 25. If you don't want to do the distance formula, you could do it that way. You could plug the point directly in there. Okay, let's try that one more time. What is the standard equation of the circle with center 4, 3? So x minus 4 squared plus y minus 3 squared equals r squared. You could do the distance formula with the point -1, 1, or you could try to plug this in to the equation. So x is -1 and y is +1. So we could do it that way if you don't like the distance formula. -1 minus 4 squared plus y, instead of y, 1 minus 3 squared equals r squared. Okay, so -1 minus 4 is going to give us -5 squared. Notice how I put that in parentheses. 1 minus 3 is -2 squared. So -5 squared is 25. -2 squared is +4. So I know that 29 equals r squared, and that's what I wanted to figure out to plug in here. All right, so that means I could write my final answer of x minus 4 squared. Let me write that actually just right up here. Instead of r squared, I can replace 29. Okay, so you could plug the point they gave you in instead of using distance formula. Either one would work. Okay. All right, let's look here then. When you make a call on a cell phone, a tower receives and transmits that call. A way to monitor the range of a cell tower system is to use equations of circles. So suppose the equation x minus 7 squared and y plus 2 squared equals 64 represents the position and transmission range of the tower. So they want to know how close to the tower do you need to be in order to get cell service. They want us to draw a picture of the graph. Okay? In order to have the graph, we need HK. If you can steal that from the equation, you're in business. We have -7, so that means that H is +7. Remember, it's going to look kind of opposite. If this is a +2, it means that K is -2. So I'm going to have this graph go up by 2's. All right, just because that way we'll have a little bit more room to get everything going here. Okay, I know that the center is at 7, -2, so I can put a dot at over 7 down -2 right away. All right, and then I need the radius. The radius is here, but that's r squared. So I know that r squared is 64, which means that r is the square root of 64, or 8. I need this and this to make my graph. Okay, so from there, what I usually do is I just put a few points up for reference. So I start from my center that's marked blue over here, and I might go 8 up, 2, 4, 6, 8. I also might go 8 down, 2, 4, 6, 8. Maybe 8 to the left and 8 to the right, 2, 4, 6, 8. We are going to go a little bit off the graph, so I'll estimate where that's going to be. And then at that point, it's about trying to connect the circle as neatly as you can. Okay, so that's what the rest of the lesson is going to be about, is just attempting to take and look at the equation and use that in order to make the circle. Okay, so we're going to look at that over the next few examples here. So let's look at that then. We're going to try to graph these circles just based on the center and the radius that they had given us. So if it's in standard form, all we need is h and k to know the center, and then the radius so that we know how big to make the circle. So that's what we're going to try to do. With this one, h and k, well, there's nothing in parentheses with the x, so h must be 0, k must be 0. R is the square root of 25, which is 5. So on this one, I'm going to put a dot at 0, 0, and then I'm going to make some dots 5 away from 0 in each direction here, so that I can try my best to make a rounded off shape there. Okay, let's look at the second one. H, that's going to be +2. Again, it's whatever the opposite of the sign is there. y is going to be where we get k. There's nothing in parentheses there with k, so k is 0. R is the square root of 9, which is 3. So I need to dot it to 0. I need a dot 3 in each direction away from 2, 0. And I need to try to make that circle there. Okay? And then lastly, with this one, H looks like positive 1. K would be positive 3. R is the square root of 16, which is 4. So I need a dot at 1, 3. And I need to go 4 away in each direction. And you can hear the bell going off. It's time for lunch. 1, 2, 3, 4 down. I can make that circle all the way through, and then we're good there. Okay? The last type of example is just going from the picture of the circle to the equation of the circle. So we're going to try to write the equation of each of these. So let's start with circle A. I'm going to highlight that one red. We have to know the center of it. So the center, if this is at negative 4, that's going to be my H and K. And then the radius, since it doesn't tell me something that it definitely goes through, I can just count that and say that the radius is 2. So what I can do is I can write my final equation now that I know what H and K and R are. So that's going to be x minus negative 4, so positive 4, squared, plus y minus negative 4, so plus 4, squared, equals 2 squared, which is 4. That's the equation for the red circle A. Let's jump over to B. I'll make blue. The center is at negative 1, positive 2. The radius is at 1, 2, 3, 4. So the blue circle is going to have an equation of x minus negative 1 squared plus y minus 2 squared equals 4 squared, or 16. All right, and then circle C, I'll make that one green. Has a center at positive 3, negative 3, and a radius of 3. So x minus 3 squared plus y minus negative 3, so plus 3 squared equals 3 squared, which is 9. Okay. On this last one, just be careful and realize that the scale is going up by 2s. So the center is at 0, negative 4. The radius is 3 units on the graph, but that is a radius of 6 since the scale is going up by 2. So that one would be x squared, there's no h there, no left or right, plus y minus negative 4 squared equals 6 squared, or 36. So that happens on your homework too, so be careful on the front page of the homework when the scales go up by 2 like that. All right, so that is the equation of a circle, how to draw the picture of it on a graph, how to find missing things like the radius, and how to write that equation so you can represent what the circle would look like in graph form. All right, go ahead and give the worksheet a shot.